Kentucky History Podcast. I'm your host, Jamison Cable, and we're going to jump right back into our conversation with Pike County native Roger Ford for some more Pike County history. Well, so we get on, of course, there's plenty we can talk about discovering in those areas, but we get to 1790 at the mouth of Sycamore Creek, the lower Johns Creek. William Robert Leslie sets up the first permanent settlement in Pike County, and that is your descendant, correct?
Yes, I am descended from the Taylors and the Scotts. We would probably be related to the Leslies in some way. If you've, as we say here, if you've lived here more than 6 generations, you're related to everybody. So it's just one of those things, I guess. Over time, you had so few families and so sparse land, space where they were living, right, that they were spread out everywhere. The population was very sparse. So inevitably families intermarry.
Of course, yeah.
In that. And so the Leslies were the first permanent settlement, the Leslie Farm, there on Lower Johns Creek. My mother grew up on Brushy Creek, which is part of Johns Creek proper. And it's in the far remote kind of eastern, southwestern part of the county over near Martin County. Kind of in that northern easterly part of the county. Still hard to get to, still remote. Some people like it that way. But that's kind of where the Leslie Farm settlement was, there in the Sycamore area. Actually, there's a mountain there, Sycamore Mountain, across from the Johns Creek side over to the Brushy Creek side.
So, and as for the next 10, I guess 20, 30, about 10 years or so, more settlers come in and probably start sprouting up on the Levisa, and we're real near what is now Pikeville.
Yes, and I understand now, Pikeville, which started out as Piketon, Piketon, was not the first county seat.
No, that was one thing in my notes. So tell us, what was the issue with that? How'd that go about?
The first county seat, I believe, was Liberty. Was that right?
Yeah.
And it was on up the river towards Elkhorn City in what is now the kind of the Millard area, kind of more in the more centered part of the county, I guess. But for some reason, and if you look at where that would be in comparison to where Pikeville is, not as geographically convenient.
Yeah.
And so land was donated by a gentleman here in Pike County, or in Pikeville, and his name escapes me at the moment. I think he might have been an Adkins, maybe.
Elijah Adkins.
That's it. Yep. And I forget how many acres he donated to move the county seat. If you look at where that marker is for Liberty, which would have been the first county seat, I think there was some conflict too at the time, that there was already a kind of like, there's Liberty over in Casey County, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And then there was the attempt in Morgan County to name their county seat Liberty, and I think this is all happening at about the same time. You can't have 3 liberties in the same same state, right? As county seats. So Liberty in Morgan County became West Liberty, which I don't understand how that came about, considering that West Liberty is far east of Liberty. And then they just said, forget it here. We'll just make Liberty in Pike County Piketon.
Yeah.
And so they named the county, and the county was named for Zebulon Pike, and they named the county seat Pikeville after Zebulon Pike as well, after he explored.
Now,
and I don't know why, because I don't think he ever explored in Kentucky.
Well, so I got that Zebulon Pike discovered Pikes Peak.
Yes.
Where's that at? Where's Pikes
Pikes
Peak
Peak's
at?
in Colorado.
Okay. Yeah. So okay.
It's just outside of Denver.
Yeah.
Uh,
So he has
yeah.
no connection to Kentucky, which is
None
actually
that I know of. I think he may have been a war hero. I think
yeah.
maybe he or something.
Uh-huh.
In maybe the Revolution or the
Mm-hmm.
War of 1812 or whatever. But yeah, so but no historical tie to the county or to the state of Kentucky. I don't know where he
That's
grew. I don't know where he's born and raised, but
yeah.
yeah. So uh, uh, so Zebulon Pike.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so they moved the county seat about 15 miles downstream from the Millard area, Liberty, to wherever we are today,
Yeah.
in the horseshoe of the Big Sandy River.
Yeah.
So
It's typical for a lot of Kentucky counties to be named after people who have nothing to do with the county or even the state. Now, once the governors started rolling in, a lot of the counties are named after, the first. A lot of governors get counties named after them, but I will give Zebulon Pike for having a cool name, at least. I guess it's very unique, but
and we
anyway.
have a community. Yeah, we have a community over in the Johns Creek area called Zebulon.
Oh,
That's
cool.
the name of the community. Yeah. There's an area of the county. Yeah. That's named after. It's named after him. So we have the city and the county and a community all named for Zebulon Pike. A man that most likely never set foot in Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky. But okay.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
So that's how it goes.
So with Pike County being settled and so forth, the main industry during the early years was definitely timber. What else? Anything else that you know of? I guess until the railroad was connected.
Yeah. So timber would obviously have been a big industry here from the colonial period forward. A lot of the people here, I guess, moved here were of Scots, Irish, and English descent in that early period. And why did they come to an area like this where you couldn't farm a lot? There's not large tracts of land here to farm on. It reminds you of Scotland and Ireland. It reminds you of parts of Europe that they would have been familiar with in terms of kind of like the Carolinas, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is the reason why they settled here, and they kind of were independent, and they kind of want to be left alone. But timber became one of the first industries. Obviously, like herbs and those types of things back, we think about for medicines and so forth, was a big business then, just as it is a big business now. The homeopathic herbal remedies that our forefathers obviously used for different illnesses can be found, a lot of that here. And so you had merchants pop up that traded in this. The timber was a big business. My family was in that business back and I say that because we had people in the family killed over that, and there was actually part of my family was involved in a fairly obscure feud in the 1800s. That was partly due to disputes over timber.
Okay. Yeah.
You would know it as the Hatfield and McCoy feud.
Yeah. Not too many people know about it though, right? It's very
no, nobody's never heard of it, right? They've never heard of that feud. But yeah, so the McCoys, my mother's mother was a McCoy. Randolph McCoy was her whatever great uncle, and he was the head of that part of the McCoy family that was involved in the feud. Yeah. So Randolph is like my third or fourth great uncle.
Oh, there you go. And
but it was, and there was several causes. The Civil War was a cause. The factional disputes over political differences over that. You had, the whole thing about the pig, thinking about livestock, people rusting cattle, all that. That's pretty serious. That we can make a joke about it, but it's pretty serious.
That's people's livelihoods.
And then there was the idea that one or the other or both families were still in timber. So that all those things kind of contribute
culminate
to that. Yeah, so timber was a big business, and for most of the 1800s, it was a huge bit, and it's still a good industry here. But they did a lot of clear cutting, and you can look at old photographs, the painted postcards and so forth. You know what I'm talking about, and you'll see all these hills in and around Pikeville, and there's just no trees on them.
Yeah.
And somebody remarked to me years ago, said, well, they were just lazy. They just wouldn't paint all those trees. And I'm like, well, I never really thought about that. And so I started asking people that I considered to be experts in this, and why would they not paint trees on all the, because you look at the hillside there, that same hillside today, and there's trees all over it.
Yeah.
And they said, well, it's easy. They had to have wood for homes and to heat and to cook and all that. And that was a 365 24/7 thing, right?
Yeah.
You had to have wood to heat and the cold, but you had to have wood year round to cook.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason that there was so many of these hills around here that were just clear cut. Now they farmed a lot of these hillsides. Strangely enough, people would be shocked that we grew lots of crops on the sides of mountains here. Yeah. There's actually what they call a hillside plow. I don't know if you've ever seen one. Have you ever seen one?
I don't think I have. No.
The blade. Thinking of the plow being pulled by a horse or a mule or whatever. But so you would go around. You wouldn't go up and down for erosion, right? You would parallel to the ridge line. And so they would farm on hillsides. They would use these plows, and they developed a plow that, you go left or right, well, you've got to turn that mule around or that horse around, and you got to go back the other direction. Okay. Well, how do you plow, right? So the plow had a thing, and they'd pull the pin out or whatever, and they'd flip it.
Wow.
So you could go this way, and the blade would be cutting the right way, and then you would get around and turn your team around, and you would reach down and you would flip your plow blade the opposite direction, and then you would go back.
Oh, wow.
And then you go back. So it was a hillside plow. It's ingenious, right? So they would not only they clear cut a lot of trees, but they also put that land to use. It's fairly fertile ground. I mean, it's not real deep. It's rocky, but So there was a farming and timber was the main sources of income here for lots of people.
And then, of course, once the railroad comes in, we get to the big industry.
Once they find coal, once they discover coal and the coal interests start coming into the area in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And once John C.C. Mayo from Johnson County and the creator of the broad form deed swept through the big Sandy Valley and leased up
loads of land
for 25 cents an acre, the railroads came.
Yeah, we've done a few episodes on John C.C. Mayo. You're from Pike County. What's your take on him? I mean, how do you I guess look at, which he came from Floyd, right? Or not from Paintsville, I mean.
I think he was originally from Floyd County. He settled in Johnson County. He's got the Mayo Mansion there in downtown Paintsville, right beside the Methodist Church. There's a Catholic school there, Our Lady of the Mountain, or what is the name
Uh,
of the school?
it's a Lady of the
Our Lady of the Mountains. It's a Catholic school.
Seminary.
Yeah, it's a Catholic school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he just figured it out. He figured out the way. He figured out the way to do it.
Yeah.
I don't fault him for that.
Well,
but he took advantage of a lot of people. A lot of people, they didn't know. They were just farmers, and they could see what was on top of the ground. And for most of them, the idea that there would be something valuable hundreds of feet underground under their property was just completely crazy talk, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
How many acres right here? Well, I've got 500 acres. Well, here, I'll give you 25 cents an acre to lease up what's under your ground.
Yeah, they're like, well, sure, buddy.
Well, yeah, sucker.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, that between that and then the declaring people land poor to favor these big companies. Now, that to me is the unfairness. If there's anything, is the government's declaring families land poor because they had so much more land than they had the ability to pay the taxes. So they would declare them land poor, and they would force them to sell their land off. And then these companies would come in and buy up the land for just nothing. If there's anything that's a criticism, it would be that. So, but the railroads really transformed this area, opened it up.
I got a few little facts here that I'll just because Pike County was the largest coal provider of the state, and probably is it still? I would assume it still is. No.
I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But during the 8 years that Obama was president, he really hammered the coal industry here, and actually, I think maybe Union County in Western Kentucky,
it might have
may have surpassed Pike County at least for a time as the number one coal producer. But in terms of production of coal, historically, Pike County is and remains the largest coal producer in the state and in the country. At one time during the coal boom of the 70s, and when we were really producing a lot of coal, the fact would have been that if we had been our own state, Pike County had separated and become its own state, we would have been the third largest coal producer in the country.
Wow, that's pretty. Or
not the country, the world.
Wow.
Yeah, so we at one time produced as much coal as any other single place on the planet.
Well, so yeah, and that was one of the things I had here. It was in 1986. There was 319 underground coal mines and 148 above ground coal mines, and by that time, Pike County had produced 31.4 million tons of coal, which was 18% of the state's. So,
yeah,
massive. That's quite a bit.
And employed a lot of people. It was a blessing and a curse. It really was. And that you had people paid well. You generated lots of tax revenue from that. And outside of that, there wasn't much else developed. And when the coal business went away, so did all those jobs.
Yeah.
And all that tax money, and it's created a terrible situation here because poor planning and wasteful spending by local governments.
Yeah.
Squandered all that tax money, things that, and I mean, we invested some of it, but in comparison to Virginia, the coal severance tax in Kentucky, we're getting that. It's probably a little better than that now, but it don't matter because there's no coal being mined. But, the fact is, we were getting just pennies on the dollar as
Yeah.
little as 15 cents on the dollar of local single county coal severance tax money coming back to the counties that produced it, as opposed to the state of Commonwealth of Virginia that also has a coal severance tax. They have 7 counties in Virginia that mine coal, and they collect that tax in the county in which that coal is mined, and 100% of that money stays in that county.
Oh, yeah. That
state of Kentucky takes their money from coal mining, coal severance tax, and from the extraction of natural gas and lime, and rock, rock quarry. That's all considered severance, extraction. They take all that money and then they split that up at the state level, and then at a multi-county level, and then at the single county level. And so when it finally gets to us, there's not much left. It would have been better to have left all that money in these coal counties.
Yeah.
And have 100% of that money invested as it properly should have been, planning for the day when there was not coal. But I grew up hearing, well, there'll always be coal. There's always going to be. We always have to have coal.
Times change.
Yeah. It eventually runs out, or it gets very expensive to mine. And what you've got, we still have coal, just not price competitive, and it's over-regulated. The federal government just, killed us in the Obama years, because they obviously wanted us to transition away from coal, and they made sure that we were going to one way or another. So lots of good, but lots of not so good. And so we've got to get out of this hole we're in here. I mean, it's economically, and I don't know that we can. We just have to keep trying and see how that goes for us.
Well, Roger, we could talk about coal and the coal industry and coal camp towns, all that stuff. We could get into that for hours and hours. A few other things I just want to rattle off here. There's 2 main railroads, the Chesapeake and the Ohio, and then the Norfolk and Western railroads that came in. Some of the towns, and you probably know more of these, but you have Elkhorn City is the second largest town in Pikeville or Pike County, and you have Belfry, Phillips, Virgie, Coal Run. Is it Heller, or am I saying that one right? Hellier. Any others that you would
you have dozens of little towns. Now we only have 3 incorporated cities. We have Pikeville, which is the largest, and then Elkhorn City, and Coal Run, which is just adjoins Pikeville down the river here. Those are the 3, but you have lots of communities. Now Hellier, Hellier, is used to be I think an incorporated city. It had 2 or 3 department stores, a movie theater.
Oh wow!
It was a coal camp, and my dad's mother was born at Hellier. But then you have Stone, you have McAndrews, you have Huddy, Belfry. All of these. Stone especially was a big coal camp town. At one time, the coal company there was owned by Henry Ford in the early 1900s. He owned Eastern Coal. He bought Ford Coal. He actually spent some time here, built a home here. Never stayed in the home. He stayed in his Pullman car on the railroad. But they had a theater. They had stores, company stores. They had all of that type stuff. So you have lots of coal camps here that are now just
towns, communities,
little towns, little communities. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a lot of good history.
That's a story in and of itself.
Yeah. So so again, thanks for coming on. We'll have to do it again and talk about Pikeville and Virgie and for every nook and corner or holler in Pike County if we can.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks again for listening. Anything else real quickly before we go?
No, just appreciate the opportunity and look forward to future conversation.
All right. Well, we thank you again for coming or being on here, and hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll see everybody next time.
All right. Thank you.